All right, let's move on to the next film. You saw The Story of the Southern Islet. What is that? I have no clue what this is about.
You know what? I watched this based solely on there's one frame that they had of this just odd looking ghostly character on the hood of some terrified woman's car, or maybe some unsuspected woman's car. And I was like, man, that looks right up my alley. And it was. It was a Malaysian film. And it just adds to the growing list of Southeast Asian horror films that they're really just, I mean, they're kicking ass and taking names over the past decade. We had Soul, Hypocrite, The Wailing, Impetigore. There's so many films that I've seen out of there recently that they've just been so haunting, and this could be added to it easily. It's about a fisherman who lives at the base of a mountain, and he I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but the series of events happens where he winds up ill. His wife, who is very westernized, wants to try to help him get better, but also doesn't necessarily believe in the husband's customs. The husband, who was a fisherman, he will offer sacrifices to his god to try to help bring more money into the family. They have 2 young children at home. And as he's sick, she finds that her ways of dealing and healing aren't necessarily working, and she's resistant to actually try some of the other types of medicine that he might recommend, and finds that there's this increasing familial tension, but also this kind of mind expanding that she's got to go on to see if it is actually this supernatural world in which he's dependent. Mm-hmm. So and it takes place in the 80s, and it was in this little city, and it reflects on the different cultures that were also in Malaysia and that have made up Malaysia, from the storytelling, ancient proverbial aspects to it, to the more modern westernized influence, and how they kind of clash and still could coexist. So it is a horror movie, but I don't want to. There's not a lot of jump scares to it. It's a very slow build, and it's a very deliberate pace. But in that time, we get a chance to really soak in some of the beautiful landscapes of this area. I mean, the fields, the paddies that they're in are these lush greens. The mountain behind them looks very ominous and foreboding. And that all folds into the narrative of these, living in the shadows of the past and still trying to manipulate how to move forward with that.
Yeah, I find that it's interesting you bring that, but there is a beauty that exists in Asian horror films that don't exist in like European horror films.
Exactly. Yeah.
It plays much more on European. I think plays against a lot of the darkness of the area and the industrialization, versus Asian, where it's, nature definitely plays a role in the horror, so to speak.
Right. And that's what I love most about it, is that tendency to lean toward the supernatural and having it be like of the earth, and these earthly horrors that are also supernatural in nature, are those really creep under the skin, and regardless of what your beliefs are, you'll still find yourself, I think, engaging with these characters and taking the journey with them. So really.
So what is the nature of the horror? Is it the it's not the tension and release, but it's more the spiritual, like the demonic, so to speak?
That's it. It is, as she starts to see that that her approach is no longer working, and as she becomes susceptible and goes to greater measures and measures outside of her own education to get help, like venturing into a cave and talking to I don't want to give away too much, but talking to people who dwell within or near the cave, and her mind starts to see, or does it, these, is it opening up a third eye into these realms that she once scoffed at and neglected, and that's where the real tension starts to increase.
Okay, creepy. All right, film I'll never see. I'm just not a horror guy. We'll post a video, but I just saw Aliens for the first time.
And it isn't. I will say it's not your traditional horror, but I think that's kind of what I love about this is that they don't necessarily. I mean, some will tend toward the gore and the bodily horror, but some of them are much more under the skin and contemplative, like this one.